as a real estate agent who founded one of the top teams in the city, selling over $1 billion in property, you'd probably think I'd be a pretty good real estate investor. However, I have to tell you, due to some really dumb decisions and trusting a lot of the wrong people, I've made mistakes that have cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. And today, I'm gonna pull back the curtain for you. I'm gonna tell you all the details of all the mistakes I've made so that you don't have to make the same ones. Over the past decade, I've bought 5 real estate properties. 2 of them went really well. 2 were total flops. And 1, I would say the jury is still out. So that's also not counting the angel investments that I've made or the syndications that I've invested in that I've lost money on. And I would say one thing is clear is that education is really, really expensive. I knew that going in. If you're thinking about investing in San Francisco real estate because you think it's a guaranteed path to wealth, this is gonna be one video that you cannot afford to skip. And I'm gonna be back here every Monday at 5 p.m. with more videos like this one. So if you want honest, data-driven feedback, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Now, I know who you are. You're a brilliant engineer or a founder. You've done the math. My husband's in tech. I have lots of clients in tech. Most of my friends are in tech. And despite the fact that the stock market has treated you better than you ever dreamed, it scares you, right? You want to think about, how do you protect that? What else can you do? How can you offset it? How can you diversify it? That's what your financial planner is telling you, right? It can be scary. You heard that real estate is a really great way to diversify, maybe even get that mailbox money, that passive income. I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute. You guys, it can be a great investment. And you know people, right? You know people who have built wealth in real estate. But I feel like there's just not enough people who talk about all the risks involved, all the work involved, and all of the things that could go wrong. Stick with me because my first mistake is going to be a perfect example of all of that. And it cost me dearly. If you've been following me for a while, you know my team and I have sold over 1,000 homes, right? So I do know residential real estate inside and out. I can do it in my sleep, but that does not automatically make me a great investor. So what I'm hoping by sharing these experiences with you is that instead of you thinking I'm an idiot, is that you understand that my team and I are really honest. This is really vulnerable for me, but we want to tell you the truth and help you go in with whatever you decide to do with your eyes wide open instead of naive, like I have been in some cases. So that might mean if you call us, it might mean that we try to talk you out of doing something really stupid. We often do that. Okay, so my first mistake, it was the mistake of buying into this idea of mailbox money. The idea of mailbox money is basically you buy a property and you rent it out and the tenant pays the mortgage and then eventually it gets paid off and you get a check in the mail. You know, a lot of times people buy multiple properties, you know, as part of this investment strategy. So at the time I thought, oh, maybe I'll buy a property a year of varying price points. And then that'll be a great way to offset, you know, funds in the retirement, 401ks, that sort of thing. I have since revised that plan. So the first property that I bought was in Birmingham, Alabama. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. I've never been there. Tell me in the comments, is it cool? Apparently they have really cheap properties there. This property was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath property, and it was only $100,000. So thank God I did something smart in that I started out low on my investment journey, right? It was $25,000 to put down. So what could possibly go wrong? Well, the reality is everything. There was a lot to go wrong. So we had the property for 3 years. It seemed like about every 6 to 8 months, it had to be re-rented. Like people never paid rent. And then by the time that they would leave or be asked to leave, which also felt terrible, by the way, they would have often messed up the property, and then we had to pay the property manager to fix up the property again and pay the property manager to rent the property again. I had met this woman who owned this company, and it was a turnkey company. So you would hire the company and they would do everything for you, right? They would purchase the property for you, find the renters, they would rent it, the whole deal. I had met this woman at a mastermind group that was full of all these people that I trusted. I learned learned to trust her, it became her friend, and then later invested in this company. Now, the company had done, I can't remember, but it was like hundreds and hundreds, maybe 1,000 of these sales. So it wasn't like they didn't know what they were doing. Maybe I just got unlucky. Maybe that's possible. Maybe all of their other clients had swimming deals. But after 3 years of this pain and suffering, and remember, this is like, it's not like I'm going there, but it's just a lot of emotional stress of like what, as opposed to investing in, say, the S&P 500. Fast forward, we decided to sell the property despite being told that, don't worry, like this never happens. It'll work out. Things will be fine. By the time we sold the property and paid them again to sell the property, of course, 6% to sell the property. And then there's like $10,000 in various fees over the years. And, in terms of things that went wrong with the property, $13,000 in interest. It was basically a negative $29,000 loss. So in addition to the 25% we put down, right? In the process of making this video for you guys, at the time, ChatGPT didn't exist. Like I knew there was a loss, but I didn't really understand how bad it was at the time. I took the amount, just the down payment, and put it into ChatGPT and asked if I were to have invested this $25,000, not including all the additional money that went in, how much money would that have made in those years in the S&P 500 in an index fund? The answer back was $45,000. So that is a total of $73,000. Pretty expensive mistake, especially given the amount of money that was going in. Like, can it be possible to lose so much more? And I know it's not exactly fair because you can't always look at investments that way, but investments are an opportunity cost. If you're investing in one thing, you could be investing in something else. So before I learned that lesson, because remember I told you I wanted to buy a property a year every year, and I was on track to do that for a while. But that meant that by the time I was learning a mistake, I had already started other mistakes. So I already had another mistake underway, and that mistake was right here in San Francisco. In 2017, I decided to buy this it's still adorable. I still own it. In case you want to buy it, let me know because it's going to be for sale next time the tenant moves out. But an adorable micro house off Dubois Triangle. Honestly, I should have spent a little bit more money and gotten a single family home. But at the time I was thinking location, location, location. And if I had bought a single family home, I would have had to go to, I would say, Dubois Triangle. I think it's an A location. It's sunny, it's walkable, there's great restaurants, there's public transit. It's so cute. Fast forward to 2022, the condo market had a massive, massive correction. And so now that condo, because it is still classified as a condo, even though there's nothing above it, it looks like a house, it acts like a house, but it is in fact a condo. That condo is worth less than I paid for it today. Not a lot, I don't think. You never really know until you sell it, but it's a little less. So here's the thing. In San Francisco, location is not the most important thing. Product type is the most important thing when it comes to appreciation. Now, when it comes to your personal lifestyle and how you feel if you live in it, that could be different. But in this case, an investment bought for $1 million. I also had to fix the roof, fix the bathrooms, and I did new floors. And I learned that a 1-bedroom, this is something I did not know because I don't do rentals, right? 1-bedroom condos turn over constantly, about every 18 months, according to my leasing agent. So pretty much every year I'm dealing with a vacancy. A vacancy means no money, right? So that's also a headache. And, it's the process of cleaning it up again and re-renting it again. And it's stressful. So if I were to sell this one today and do the same comparison against the stock market in those same years, I would actually be down about $175,000. Now, as I mentioned, it's worth a little less than what I paid for it. But if I changed that and adjusted it by just a 3% appreciation rate, and that's a 3%, across those 8 years, let's call it. And to be clear, it's never like straight. You're going to have like some years that are up 18 and some years that are down 4 and some years that are up 6. And, so you're going to have swings on appreciation, but overall you get an average. So at just 3%, which is very conservative, I would have beat the stock market. So that's where the product becomes really really, really important. So despite the fact that this has cost me money, I feel like this is a really valuable lesson that now when we talk to clients about it, we can help them hopefully not make the same mistakes. And in fact, we actually had a buyer around that same time, and they were very scrappy. And by that, I mean that they were willing to sacrifice a lot to get what they wanted, right? So they wanted to buy something, they wanted to own real estate, they really wanted a single family home, they wanted to be in a really good location, but they honestly couldn't afford it in the traditional sense. So what they did is they bought the single family that not a lot of people would have wanted. So, which is going to give you a better price, right? It didn't have a garage. It was in an area that didn't have great parking. It was essentially a 1-bedroom on top in the main house. And then you walked around the back and then you went down and there was this whole nother level that was part of, the legal classification. It had a bathroom and, an area to have a sleeping quarters and an area to have a really cool living room, and it looked out over the backyard, and you could put a little kitchenette or something down there. And they can Airbnb that above board. Now, the rules for Airbnb in San Francisco, I think they're stricter than most cities. So if you're thinking about that, you really, really want to look into it because I think the infractions are pretty serious. But what they did is with those short-term rentals, they were able to offset their entire mortgage. And they bought the place for 1.6. Now it's worth 1.9. So they gained $300,000 in appreciation while not spending any money on their mortgage and saving all of the money that they would have spent on their mortgage. And now they're looking for a home that is going to be a more traditional home in a great neighborhood, taking all of that money and that equity and being able to turn it into something else. So did they have to kind of suffer and get scrappy? That's the time that I'm talking about, right? Like they're overseeing Airbnbs in their own house. Not everybody wants to do that. So it's work, and it is not easy free money. So that's just something to understand about, like, as opposed to the Birmingham place, it didn't work out, right? Maybe there are things out there that exist and I just don't know the right people. I'm quite certain there are. We'll get to a little bit about like how to find that in a second. Okay, back to my mistakes. The next one I'm going to tell you, it's been my biggest emotional loss. The reason why was because the deal was done with somebody who honestly, I kind of loved. It was somebody who I trust more than family, like basically one of my mentors for over a decade. And I lost $50,000 investing in a syndication. Now, to be fair, to my own discredit, they did not have any experience in syndications. They run one of the top real estate teams in the entire country. I have seen them execute all kinds of business plans flawlessly from my standpoint and do very, very, very well. And I just felt that everything they touched turned to gold, and this would too. To be frank, I'm just glad it was only $50,000. The entire division of their company has gone completely bankrupt, and hundreds of people lost everything they put in, and many of them put in substantial amounts of money and substantial amounts of like their savings. Some people liquidated their 401ks. Some people got their parents to liquidate their 401ks. Some people raised money from their clients. My lesson there is that no matter how much you trust somebody or how much you think they're smart, if they're starting something new, let them learn on someone else's dime. Preferably their own. But for something like a syndication, they have to raise money. Now, syndications can look very, very, very sexy because there can be, especially if you can be what's called an LP in one, there can be massive tax incentives. Like I know people who wipe out their entire tax payments using syndications and they make a lot of money. But it is something that I looked into, and it's a business. It's a full-time business. So there's no shortcut. Invest with people who are proven, and, back to the Birmingham person, with people who you know, right? And if not, just find somebody else or wait. Put it into something else that's safer and more risk-free. Okay, that was depressing. Not every deal is a disaster, I swear. So the next one surprised me in the best way. So in 2020, we bought a property in Tahoe, and everyone, all my friends in real estate thought I was crazy. They were telling me, oh, the real estate market there it's like going up, it's going to flop, everything's going to fall after COVID. I honestly did not care. I just needed a place to go. Right? Because remember COVID in the Bay Area, we were locked in our houses. It was bad. You couldn't even book anything, right? So that property, honestly, my husband and I say all the time that it's the best thing we've ever bought. So it has been a nice break from the city. It has been a way to get to nature. It is a way to have a place to go snowboarding in the snow when you're too busy and you never, ever book it. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place. Now, we lose about $40,000 a year in cash flow on that place. We Airbnb it, which I don't love, but it's the financially responsible thing to do. Sounds like a terrible investment, right? But here's the thing. The property has appreciated by over $700,000 since we bought it. So that gain completely offsets the losses. And will it continue? I hope. I don't know, right? But appreciation has definitely saved the day on that one. So my lesson on that one is, well, the ROI has been there, but it's been more than that. And it's been a quality of life. It's been an enjoyment piece. And that is something that the stock market cannot give you. I mean, I don't know how much joy you can get from checking your stock. It does feel good for a minute as long as it's doing well, which it oftentimes is, let's face it, but you're not in it. Right? It's a very temporary joy. So is it possible to get both though? Because Tahoe appreciated, but it doesn't cash flow. And so the next good story that I have is that we bought a place in Nashville in 2019. We bought it for $420,000. We put 25% down. It now cash flows about $28,000 a year and it's worth $650,000. Now our total gain on that is $283,000. So that's $137,000 more than the stock market would have given in the same time. Yay for the win! Now, the really ironic thing about that story is that was another friend and another mentor of mine who I met about the same time as my friend who led the bankrupt thing. In this case, things have been absolutely wonderful. In fact, if you ever need to buy a property in Nashville, give Ben Wilson and his team a call. It's a little commercial for him. I don't make money off that. I don't make money off anything off here except if you guys call me and I sell you a house. But Ben is amazing. Here's the thing though, is that residential real estate wasn't a new thing for him. Him and his team had been doing it for over a decade. He wasn't learning something new. So it wasn't as risky of a proposition. He wasn't test driving a new business with other people's money. After all of these experiences, I had to completely redefine what investing means to me. Now, this doesn't have to be what it means to you. So if you still want to get into real estate investing after hearing all my crazy stories, here's what I would summarize. 1, if it sounds too good to be true, and you've heard this before, it is. Walk away, run away. Real estate takes time. It's your time. Your time is valuable. There's an opportunity cost to your time. Do your homework. Vet the people, vet the numbers, work with somebody who has experience in the space that they're working in. In San Francisco, property type matters more than location. I didn't talk about this in this video, but if you're going to do investment property in San Francisco, you really need to study the tenant laws. This is a very tenant-friendly city. And I would highly recommend, in addition to having a good real estate agent, having a good real estate attorney by your side for those transactions. The tenant world is fraught with just a legal landmine. Also in San Francisco, just remember, if you put a standard 25% down, you're not going to cash flow. You have to put down a lot, like probably closer to 50 to cash flow the property. And that means that that's an opportunity cost for that money in the stock market, right? Make sure you buy with appreciation in mind. So the property where the story is still out, I just bought a property in Missouri. I renovated it from here. It's 4 miles from my mom's house. I have a huge family. I'm one of 9, and I wanted to buy a home that my family could get together in. There is literally nothing that brings my mom more joy than having all of her kids together and hopefully getting along. And so I wanted a space that we could all come together. Well, I was actually doing my 5-year plan. My kids are going to be gone by then. And I was like, oh, okay, what if my mom gets sick? There's no place to stay. So I went and looked, what does the property cost there anyway? And then I was like, oh, that one looks nice. As an investment, it's probably a dumb one, to be honest, eyes wide open. I've yet to see if it'll pan out, but it's a high price for the area. That's not usually a good idea. It probably won't appreciate because of the high price, and also the area does not have good appreciation. Probably not my most intelligent investment, but to me, it's more of a luxury purchase than it is an investment because I have other investments, right? So I hope I don't lose money on it. And there is a chance I could make money on it because there's a wedding venue really close by. I do plan to Airbnb it, and we'll see. There's also some tax benefits to owning real estate and even losing money on real estate. So I'll keep you posted. Check in with me on how that's going. I should know in another year or so. If this video has you questioning whether or not you should buy the home that you're going to live in, that's actually not my intention, because owning a primary residence is actually something that I really believe in. I can't cite the study, but there are actually lots of studies out there that show that people who own homes end up more wealthy than people who don't. And I think part of the reason is that it's a forced savings account, right? You have to pay your mortgage. You can't choose to buy the handbag. So it builds long-term equity. A lot of times in San Francisco, when you're buying a single family, you buy the best one that you can afford at that time. And if it's a single family, it's appreciating. And at the same time, San Francisco residents often have good income trajectory, and they're able to save a little bit more, take the appreciation, and buy the next nicer house. It also gives you some stability. It gives you creative freedom. It gives you the ability to build a community, right? You can't just get evicted. And, not that it's easy to evict anyone in San Francisco, but there's a sense of ownership, and you can't put a price on all of that either. But overall, I do think owning your own home is a great investment, and I'm happy to talk to you. We've done lots of videos, but I'm happy to talk to you directly about that anytime. One thing I will say, I want to show you something. Okay, so this is the New York Times, and it's a mortgage calculator. I want to get this built onto my site because I think it's awesome. So you can see here, you can put in your price. I put $2 million in. This says renting is better. So as you go up in price, it'll tell you it's better depending on what you put down below. As it's cheaper, it's more of a slam dunk, but that's because I have this rent here that more matches the mortgage, right? You can adjust based on what the rent is that you're looking at, based on what you're thinking about buying, based on how long you plan to stay there. You put your interest in, you put your down payment in, and then you can put in the growth rate. So this is kind of where it's okay, checking for how our neighborhood's appreciating. We can help you with this, and how our product's appreciating, right? And then the rent, I got this from my rental agent. She said rents are growing about 3% right now. And then depending, right, are your investments, if you look back over the last 10 years, what is the average? Are you getting 20% across your investments? If so, then putting that down payment into the market is a better financial decision. So, there's all these different things. You can put your tax rate in here. Anyway, I think this is awesome. Happy to walk you through any questions about this offline. I just wanted to bring that up because, a mortgage calculator can be a good thing to play around with. So after hearing all my horror stories, you probably think I don't have any business giving investing advice, or maybe you've already tuned out by now. But despite the failures that I've had, I'm going to be 48 next month. I will say I do not work because I need to work. I work because I love to work. I love what I do. I don't need the paycheck. So I say all that to say that despite my failures, we've done some things right. And I'll share kind of a summary of my tips and then some other things that I think. So obviously, I'm not a financial planner. I have a great one. If you want an introduction to one, he's phenomenal. Apparently, I'm not even very good at real estate investing. But for whatever it's worth, I wanted to kind of give you a quick summary here. Before you go buy an investment property, whether it's for your mom or yourself or as an investment, I would say first, max out your 401k, buy your primary residence, and only then consider buying an investment property. In fact, I'd probably first save even more money into like an index fund, but that's just me. And from the wise old woman that I am, if you can get a win-win on your investment property where you can enjoy it too, that's something that you can't get from an index fund. That is what I vote for. Couple of things that have, if you want some additional homework that have shaped my thinking, like I'm a big reader. So 2 books on the opposite end of the spectrum. The first is a book called Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. It's awesome. It basically encouraged me to stop thinking about the next get rich thing, my friend that made money in crypto or on this or that angel investment. Like, I think for a long time early in life, my husband and I kept thinking like we just needed to find that thing that was going to help us get rich quick, right? The book basically focuses on like, it's not that thing. It is just wealth is built slowly over time. So it's the whole Warren Buffett, who is one of the richest. I don't know if he's still the richest, but he's got a lot of money. Okay. And his whole thing is the true edge is time and discipline. And that is something that I really do believe to be true after making all of these mistakes. The second one on the other end of the spectrum is Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. And it changed my life. I used to work 60 to 80 hours consistently every single week. And I just was so driven. I think because I grew up very poor. I couldn't kill the slave driver inside of me. I just needed to work all the time, maybe some psychological issues with proving myself but I was also just chasing this magic number that I felt like I needed to have in order to know that I was like could retire and like needed to get there super quickly. And now I realize like life is long. Like it is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Enjoy it. I was at a funeral for my very first employee, 46 years old on Monday, and she left behind an 18-year-old son. And we just never know when it's going to be over. So I would just encourage you to slow down. Don't try to do the quick thing. Invest, but also live. One of the best parts about real estate investing is actually leverage. And that is something that you don't get from the S&P 500. You get the appreciation when you invest in $1 million property and you have to put $250,000 down. You don't get the appreciation only on the $250,000. You get it on the $1 million. And that is what makes it so powerful. But as you can see in the examples that I gave, it's not a guarantee and it's not always easy. So if you can also get joy from it, which you can't get from the S&P 500, and you have other investments as well, I think it could be worth it. If you want to learn how to avoid some pitfalls when buying new construction, watch this video right here. And if you want to work with a team who has seen it all and who's going to tell you the truth, even when it costs them their commission, we would be honored to be able to chat with you about your next real estate venture, whatever it may be. Oh, and if you made it this far, make sure you hit the subscribe button. More than 70% of you are watching us on TV, which I cannot believe. And I know it's hard. It's a lot of extra effort to do that, but please do it. It helps us more than you know.